After surgery, I heard again, but pretended to be deaf at home. What I heard in those 2 days, my wife, her mother, and even our son calling me a burden, will take them to a place they never wanted to be. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe, hit the hype button, and support this channel with a like. And tell us below. Have you ever faced something like this? The train from Northwestern Memorial Hospital rattled through Chicago's late afternoon grid. I kept my eyes on the window, watching the city blur past. The bandage behind my right ear itched. Dr. Patel had removed it that morning, checked the implant site, and told me the procedure was a complete success. 16 years of silence. Gone. Just like that. I could hear the conductor's voice over the intercom. The screech of brakes. The woman 2 seats ahead talking too loudly on her phone about her sister's wedding. Every sound sharp and clear and overwhelming. But I wasn't ready to tell them yet. Something in my gut warned me to wait, to watch, to listen. The house on Linden Avenue looked the same as always. 2 stories, white siding, black shutters, Mira's car in the driveway next to Colton's beat-up Honda. I pulled my truck in behind them and sat there for a moment, gathering myself. 16 years I'd lived in silence. 16 years of reading lips, feeling vibrations, watching faces for clues about what people really meant. You learn things that way. You see the truth behind the smiles. I grabbed my overnight bag and headed inside. Mira was in the kitchen, her back to me. She was on her phone, pacing. She didn't turn around when I opened the door. "He's back," she said into the phone. Not to me, about me. I set my bag down carefully, making sure to stomp a little so she'd feel the vibration. She glanced over her shoulder, gave me a tight smile, and held up one finger. "Wait." I nodded and headed toward the living room. "I know, Mom," Mira said, her voice carrying through the house. "The doctor said it might not work. He seemed the same when I picked him up yesterday." My chest tightened. Yesterday. She'd driven me home from the initial recovery, helped me inside, and left me in bed while she went back to work. Standard procedure, she'd said. Can't miss the property closing. I sank into the recliner, my old spot, and closed my eyes like I was exhausted. But I was listening. Really listening. For the first time in 16 years, I could hear my wife's voice without looking at her face. "No, he didn't say anything," Mira continued. "He never does. Just, hand signals. That sad look. That sad look. I'll talk to you later. He's sitting right here." She lowered her voice. "Love you too." She ended the call and walked into the living room. I opened my eyes and smiled at her. She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. "How are you feeling?" she asked, over-enunciating each word like she always did. I gave her a thumbs up and pointed to my ear, then shook my head. The universal sign for still nothing. Her face fell, but underneath the disappointment, I saw something else. Relief. "I'm sorry, honey," she said, moving her lips slowly. "Maybe it takes time?" I shrugged and looked away. She patted my shoulder and disappeared back into the kitchen. I heard her texting, the rapid tap, tap, tap of her thumbs on the screen. Then her phone rang. "Hey, Mom," she answered. "Yeah, he's fine. No, nothing changed." I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady. "I know," Mira said quietly. "I know you're right. We just need to be patient a little longer." "Patient for what?" The front door opened, heavy footsteps. "Colton." "Is he back?" My son's voice called out. "Living room," Mira replied. "Be nice." Colton appeared in the doorway. 22 years old, 6 feet tall, my build but softer around the middle. He looked at me the way you'd look at a broken appliance you couldn't return. "Hey, Dad," he said flatly. I waved. He didn't wave back, just walked past me toward the kitchen. I heard him open the fridge, crack open a can. "So, it didn't work?" he asked Mira. "Doesn't look like it." "That's too bad." He didn't sound like it was too bad. He sounded like he was reading from a script. "Your grandmother wants us to come over tomorrow night," Mira said. "Family dinner." "Do I have to?" "Yes. She wants to talk about things." "What things?" Mira's voice dropped to a whisper. I had to strain to hear it. "Planning things. Future things." "Oh," Colton said, then even quieter. "Does he know?" "Of course not. How could he?" They both laughed, soft, careful laughs, the kind you make when you don't want someone to notice. I sat there in my recliner, eyes closed, hands folded on my stomach, the perfect picture of a tired, defeated, deaf man who couldn't hear his own family mocking him 10 feet away. But I heard everything, and I was already planning. That night, Mira made spaghetti. We ate in silence. or what she thought was silence. I chewed slowly, watching her face. She looked tired, stressed. She kept glancing at her phone. Colton barely looked at either of us. He scrolled through social media while eating, his face lit by the blue glow of the screen. After dinner, I cleaned up. Mira disappeared upstairs. Colton went to his room. I loaded the dishwasher, wiped down the counters, and then headed to the basement. My workshop, my sanctuary. 16 years ago, after the accident, I'd turned the basement into my escape. Workbenches lined the walls, tools hung on pegboards, half-finished projects gathered dust in the corners. When the world went silent, I'd come down here and build things, birdhouses, shelves, picture frames, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from screaming. Now I stood in the middle of the room, listening to the furnace hum, the pipes creaking, the house settling around me. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. Started typing. Day 1. They think it didn't work. Mira relieved. Colton indifferent. Mother-in-law involved. Planning things. Future things. Need to know more. I saved the note and locked my phone. Upstairs, I heard Mira's voice again. She was on the phone. I climbed the stairs quietly, staying in the shadows of the hallway. I just don't know what to do, Mom, Mira was saying. She was in our bedroom, door half open. I mean, I love him. I do, but it's been 16 years. 16 years of this. Silence. She was listening to Irene. I know you're right, Mira continued. I know, but it feels wrong. He's still my husband. More silence. Okay. Tomorrow night. We'll talk about it then. She ended the call. I heard her sigh, long and heavy. I backed away from the door and went to the guest bathroom, flushed the toilet so she'd hear it, and then headed back downstairs to the basement. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I lay on the old couch in the workshop, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around me. Footsteps above, doors closing, the distant sound of Colton's music through the floor, and I thought about Irene Morris, my mother-in-law, 71 years old, former school administrator, the kind of woman who smiled while she cut you down. She'd never liked me, not from the beginning. When Mira and I got married 25 years ago, Irene had pulled me aside at the reception and told me, "You better take care of my daughter, Owen. She deserves the world." I'd promised I would, and I had. For 25 years, I'd worked 60-hour weeks as a rail dispatcher, paid the mortgage, put Colton through school, took care of Mira's mother when her husband passed. I'd built a life for us. Then the accident happened, a freight derailment. I was in the control tower when the explosion blew out the windows. Metal fragments tore through my inner ear. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive, but Irene never saw it that way. To her, I'd become a burden, a liability, a mistake Mira should have corrected. And now, 16 years later, she was finally getting her chance. Morning came too early. I woke to the sound of Mira's alarm upstairs, the shrill beeping cutting through the floor. I heard her slap it silent, groan, shuffle to the bathroom. I stayed on the couch, eyes open, waiting. The shower ran, pipes rattled. She was singing something under her breath. I couldn't make out the words, but the melody was cheerful, light, like she didn't have a care in the world. 20 minutes later, she came downstairs. I heard her heels clicking on the hardwood. She poured coffee, opened the fridge, closed it again. Then her phone rang. "Morning, Mom," she answered. "Yeah, I'm getting ready now." Oh, I sat up slowly, stretched, and climbed the stairs. When I reached the kitchen, Mira was leaning against the counter, phone pressed to her ear, eyes on the window. She saw me and straightened up, smiled. "I'll call you back," she said into the phone. "He's awake." She ended the call and turned to me. "Morning, honey. Coffee?" I nodded. She poured me a cup, handed it over, and watched me take a sip. "Did you sleep okay?" I gave her a so-so gesture with my hand. "I know the couch isn't great," she said, "but you always liked the basement." I shrugged, smiled, took another sip. She checked her watch. "I have showings all morning, but I'll be back by 3. Your mom wants us at her place by 6. I raised my eyebrows. "Your mom?" "For dinner," she said slowly, exaggerating the words. "Family dinner. Remember?" I nodded. "Colton will drive you if I'm running late, okay?" I gave her a thumbs up. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her purse, and headed out. I watched through the window as she backed out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. Then I heard Colton's door open upstairs. He stumbled into the kitchen 15 minutes later, hair sticking up, eyes half closed. He didn't acknowledge me, just grabbed a protein bar from the pantry and a can of energy drink from the fridge. "Hey," I said out loud, testing. He didn't react, didn't even glance my way. Good. He stood there, scrolling through his phone, chewing mechanically. After a minute, he looked up and saw me watching him. He jumped a little, like he'd forgotten I was there. "Jesus, Dad," he muttered, then louder, over-enunciating. "You scared me." I pointed to my chest, then to him, then made a driving gesture, trying to ask if he'd drive me to Irene's later. He rolled his eyes. Yeah, Mom already texted me." He shoved the rest of the protein bar in his mouth and headed back upstairs. I stood there alone in the kitchen, listening to his footsteps fade. Then I heard his voice, muffled through the ceiling. "Yeah, I'm stuck driving him tonight. I know, babe, I know." She's being dramatic. "It's not that serious. He's not going anywhere. He literally can't hear us planning anything." I set my coffee down and walked quietly to the base of the stairs. "My grandma's going to talk to my mom about it tonight," Colton continued. "Something about getting paperwork together, making it official. I don't know, like power of attorney or something, so he doesn't screw things up if he gets worse." A pause. "Yeah, she's worried he'll decline. Mentally. And then we're stuck dealing with it." Another pause. Then he laughed. "I mean, he's basically a zombie now. Imagine if he actually loses it." "No thanks." I climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. When I reached the top, I walked past his closed door and into the guest bathroom, ran the water, let him think I hadn't heard, but I'd heard enough. I spent the rest of the day in the basement organizing. I pulled out old file boxes, sorted through years of paperwork, tax returns, insurance documents, mortgage statements, the deed to the house, both our names on it. I found the folder Mira kept for important things: medical records, social security cards, birth certificates. I photographed everything with my phone and uploaded it to a cloud account she didn't know about. Then I found something else. Tucked in the back of her filing cabinet, behind a stack of old real estate listings, was a manila envelope. No label. I opened it. Inside were printouts. Bank statements from an account I didn't recognize. Statements going back 6 months, transfers, small amounts at first, 100 here, 200 there, then larger, 1,000, 2,000, all going to an account under Mira's name only. I photographed every page. At the bottom of the envelope was a handwritten note. Irene's handwriting. I recognized the sharp, precise script. "Mira, keep this separate. Once you have enough, we'll move forward. Don't let him know. Mom." I photographed that too. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Colton drove us to Irene's house that evening. He didn't speak to me the entire ride, just turned up the music and tapped his fingers on the steering wheel. Irene lived in a tidy brick house on the north side, small but immaculate, the kind of place that screamed control, everything in its place, to nothing out of order. Mira's car was already in the driveway. Colton parked and got out without waiting for me. I followed him up the walkway, my hands in my pockets, my face blank. Irene opened the door before we could knock. She was dressed in a navy cardigan and slacks, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked at me with that same tight smile she always wore, the one that didn't reach her eyes. "Owen," she said loudly, over-enunciating like everyone else. "Come in. Dinner's almost ready." I nodded and stepped inside. The house smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary. Mira was in the kitchen, setting the table. She looked up when I entered and gave me a small wave. "Go ahead and sit, honey," she said, gesturing to the dining room. I sat down at the table. Colton dropped into the chair across from me, still glued to his phone. Irene bustled around the kitchen, bringing out dishes. Mira poured water into glasses. And I sat there, silent, watching, listening. "Everything looks wonderful, Mom," Mira said. "Thank you, dear." Irene set down a platter of chicken. "It's nice to have everyone together." "Yeah," Colton muttered. "Real nice." Irene shot him a look. He put his phone down. We ate in awkward silence for a few minutes. Then Irene cleared her throat. "So," she said carefully, "I've been thinking about the future." Mira glanced at me, then back at her mother. "Mom, maybe not now." "When then?" Irene's voice sharpened. "We've been putting this off for months." "I know, but—" "Mira, he can't hear us. This is the perfect time." I kept chewing, kept my eyes on my plate. "Fine," Mira said quietly. "What do you want to talk about?" Irene folded her hands on the table. "I spoke to a lawyer last week, a friend of mine. She specializes in estate planning." "Okay." She said that given Owen's condition, it would be wise to establish certain safeguards, Legal protections for you, for Colton, for the house. Mira set down her fork. What kind of safeguards? Power of attorney, medical directives, possibly a trust. Irene's voice was calm, clinical. If something happens to him, or if his condition worsens, you need to be able to make decisions without fighting through red tape. I don't know, Mom. That feels... Smart? Irene said. Responsible? Colton leaned back in his chair. She's right, Mom. What if he gets worse? What if he can't work anymore? You'll be stuck. Mira looked at me again. I was still eating, oblivious. He's already stuck, Irene said quietly. Let's not pretend otherwise. Mom, I'm not being cruel, Mira. I'm being practical. You've carried this burden for 16 years. You've been a saint. But there comes a time when you have to think about your own future, Colton's future. I do think about it, Mira said, her voice cracking. Every day. Then let's do something about it. Silence. I reached for my water glass, took a slow sip, and set it down carefully. What do I have to do? Mira finally asked. Irene pulled a folder from the sideboard behind her and slid it across the table. These are the forms. You'll need his signature. I can notarize them. How do I get him to sign? Tell him it's for insurance, for the mortgage. He won't question it. Mira opened the folder, flipped through the pages. Her face went pale. This is a lot. It's necessary, Irene said firmly. Colton grinned. Finally, Mira closed the folder. I'll think about it. Don't think too long, Irene warned. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. I finished my chicken and pushed my plate away. Smiled at Irene like I just had the best meal of my life. She smiled back. More, Owen? She asked loudly. I shook my head and patted my stomach. Full. Good, she said. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the basement couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word. Power of attorney, medical directives, possibly a trust. Tell him it's for insurance. He won't question it. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. They were planning to take everything, not by using aggression, not by causing harm, through paperwork, through lies, through the quiet legal erasure of a man who couldn't defend himself. Except I could, and they had no idea. I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. I'd started recording when we sat down for dinner. The whole conversation was there. Every word, every plan, every betrayal. I listened to it twice, making sure the audio was clear. Then I saved it to the cloud, backed it up 3 different ways. Then I started researching. By 3 a.m., I had a plan. It wasn't complicated. It didn't need to be. The best revenge is the truth, delivered at the right moment to the right people. Irene's weakness was her reputation. She'd spent decades building herself up as a pillar of the community. Former school administrator, volunteer at the library, board member of the neighborhood association. She lived for respect. I was going to take it away. I pulled up old records from the school district where she'd worked. Public documents, accessible to anyone who knew where to look. And I'd had 16 years of silent evenings with nothing to do but learn how to navigate bureaucracy. It took me 2 hours, but I found it. A disciplinary action from 12 years ago, a financial discrepancy during a fundraiser she'd organized. Money that went missing? Not a lot, just enough to raise questions. The district had handled it internally, quietly. She'd retired shortly after. No charges filed, no public scandal, just a quiet exit and a sealed file. But sealed doesn't mean gone. I downloaded everything I could find, cross-referenced it with donation records, matched dates and amounts, built a timeline. Then I drafted an email. Dear members of the Northside Neighborhood Association Board, I am writing to bring to your attention certain inconsistencies regarding Mrs. Irene Morris's tenure as a school administrator, specifically concerning financial irregularities during her time organizing district fundraisers. Attached, you will find public records documenting discrepancies that were never fully resolved. Given Mrs. Morris's current position on your board, I believe this information is relevant to your oversight responsibilities. This is not intended as a personal attack, but as a matter of transparency and accountability. Sincerely, a concerned resident. I attached the documents, set the email to send at 9 a.m. the next morning. Then I moved on to Mira. Her weakness was her career. Real estate was everything to her. Image, reputation, trust. If her clients found out she was capable of financial manipulation, even in her personal life, she'd be finished. I pulled up her work email. I still had the password from years ago when she'd asked me to help her reset it. She'd never changed it. I scrolled through her recent messages. Found what I was looking for. emails to her broker, emails to clients, and buried among them, emails to Irene discussing liquidating assets and transferring funds before he notices. I forwarded them to myself. Then I crafted another anonymous email, this time to her brokerage's ethics department. Dear Sir or Madam, I am writing to report potential ethical violations by one of your agents, Mira. Attached are email communications suggesting improper handling of shared marital assets and possible fraud. I believe this warrants investigation. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, an anonymous party. I attached the screenshots. Set it to send at 10 a.m. 2 strikes, 2 targets, both designed to hit exactly where it hurt, but I wasn't done yet. Colton was harder. He didn't have a career, didn't have a reputation to protect. But he had something else. Alexis, his girlfriend, the barista with big ambitions and expensive tastes. She'd been dating Colton for 6 months, and from what I'd overheard, she was already pressuring him about their future together. Colton had been skimming money from the joint account Mira had set up for household expenses. Small amounts, 50 here, 100 there, enough to take Alexis out, to buy her things, to pretend he was more successful than he was. Mira didn't know, but I did. I'd been tracking every transaction for months. I compiled the records, printed them out, put them in an envelope addressed to Alexis at the coffee shop where she worked. Inside, I included a note. Alexis, thought you should know where Colton's extra money has been coming from. He's been stealing from his mother. Just something to consider before you plan that future together. A friend. I didn't mail it yet. I wanted to wait. To time it perfectly. Because the goal wasn't just to hurt them, it was to make them turn on each other. The next morning, Mira came downstairs early. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Morning, she said, pouring coffee. She didn't look at me. I waved from the table. She sat down across from me, hands wrapped around her mug. I need to talk to you about something. I tilted my head, listening. She pulled out the folder Irene had given her, slid it across the table. These are some forms, she said slowly, over-enunciating. For insurance. And the mortgage. We need to update them. I opened the folder, flipped through the pages, power of attorney, medical directives, authorization to access financial accounts. I looked up at her. It's just routine, she said quickly. Everyone does it, especially after medical procedures. I nodded slowly, picked up a pen. She looked relieved. Just sign where the tabs are. I flipped to the first page, held the pen over the signature line, then I set the pen down. Shook my head. Her face fell. Owen, please. It's important. I pointed to the document, then to my chest, then shook my head again. Why not? I made a gesture like I didn't understand. Pointed to my ear. You don't understand, she said, frustration creeping into her voice. Owen, just sign it. It's for us. For our protection. I pushed the folder back toward her, shook my head firmly. She stared at me. Are you serious right now? I nodded. She stood up, grabbed the folder, and stormed out of the kitchen. I heard her on the phone a minute later. Mom, he won't sign. I don't know. He just refused. No, I don't think he understands. I think he's being stubborn. What do you want me to do? Force him? I smiled to myself and took another sip of coffee. At 9 a.m., my first email sent automatically. At 10 a.m., my second email sent. And at 10:30 a.m., Mira's phone rang. Hello? She answered, her voice tight. Then her face went white. What? No, there must be some mistake. I don't understand. Yes, I can come in this afternoon. Yes, thank you. She ended the call and stood there, frozen. What's wrong? Colton asked, wandering into the kitchen. My boss wants to see me, today, about some kind of complaint. What complaint? I don't know. Her voice cracked. Something about ethics. Colton's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went pale too. What? Mira demanded. Grandma just texted. She got removed from the neighborhood board. Some kind of investigation. They stared at each other. That's weird, Colton said slowly. That's really weird. Yeah, Mira whispered. I kept my eyes on my coffee, my face neutral. But inside, I was smiling. The house was chaos by noon. Irene showed up unannounced, storming through the front door like a hurricane. Her face was red, her eyes wild. This is sabotage, she hissed, throwing her purse on the couch. Someone sent the board a file, documents from 12 years ago, sealed documents. Mira sat at the kitchen table, head in her hands. My brokerage is launching an investigation. Someone sent them emails, my emails. What emails? Irene demanded. About us. About moving money. About Owen. Irene's face twisted. Who would do this? I don't know, Mira said, her voice breaking. I don't know. Colton leaned against the counter, arms crossed. This is insane. Who even has access to that stuff? I don't know, Mira shouted. But if they find anything, I'm done. My license, my career, everything. Irene paced the kitchen, her mind racing. We need to figure out who's behind this. A neighbor? A co-worker? It could be anyone, Mira said. Not anyone, Irene said sharply. It has to be someone who knows us, someone who has access. They both fell silent. Then Colton laughed. You don't think, it couldn't be. What? Irene snapped. Dad. They all turned to look at me. I was sitting in the living room, watching TV with the captions on. I didn't react, didn't even glance their way. Don't be ridiculous, Mira said. He can't hear. He doesn't even know what's going on. But what if he can? Colton said slowly. What if the surgery worked and he's just pretending? Irene's eyes narrowed. That's absurd. Is it? Colton stepped closer to me. Hey, Dad. I didn't react. Dad, he said louder, still nothing. He snapped his fingers next to my ear. I kept my eyes on the screen. See? Mira said. He can't hear. But Irene wasn't convinced. She walked over to me, stood directly in front of the TV, and stared down at me. I looked up at her, confused, pointed to the screen like she was blocking my view. She didn't move. Owen, she said slowly, can you hear me? I pointed to my ear and shook my head. She studied my face for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. Maybe you're right, she said to Mira. Maybe it's just a coincidence. 2 investigations on the same day? Colton said. That's one crazy coincidence. Then who? Mira demanded. Who else would care enough to do this? Irene didn't answer, but I could see the gears turning in her head. She was starting to suspect. That afternoon, I mailed the envelope to Alexis. By evening, Colton's phone was blowing up. What the? He muttered, staring at the screen. What the? What's wrong? Mira asked, barely looking up from her laptop. She was frantically going through files, trying to prepare for her meeting with the brokerage. Alexis is freaking out, Colton said. She's saying I've been lying to her, stealing money. Mira's head snapped up. What? I don't know. She's saying someone sent her proof. Bank statements. Who? I don't know, Colton shouted. This is insane. First Grandma, then you, now me? Irene looked up sharply. What do you mean, you? Colton's face went red. Nothing. It's nothing. Colton, Irene said coldly. What did you do? I didn't do anything. I borrowed a little money from the household account, for dates, for stuff. You stole from your mother. Irene's voice could have cut glass. It's not stealing. It's a shared account. It's not your money. Who cares? Colton yelled. The point is, someone is targeting all of us, and we need to figure out who. They all fell silent again. Then Mira said quietly, What if Colton's right? What if it's Owen? Irene shook her head. I've known that man for 25 years. He doesn't have the spine for something like this. People change, Mira said. Not that much. Colton looked at me again. I was still watching TV, oblivious. There's one way to find out, he said. How? Mira asked. We test him. That night they staged a conversation in the kitchen, loud enough for me to hear if I could hear, but subtle enough that I wouldn't catch on if I couldn't. I was in the living room, reading a book with the TV on in the background. So tomorrow, Mira said, her voice just slightly raised. When I go to the meeting, I'm taking the folder, the one with all the documents. Which folder? Colton asked. The one in my office. Top drawer, the red one. Got it. There was no red folder. I'd already checked. And after that, Irene said, we'll need to move forward with the lawyer, get everything finalized. What if he still won't sign? Mira asked. Then we'll find another way. Silence. I turned the page of my book, keeping my expression neutral. In the kitchen, Colton whispered, Did he react? No, Mira whispered back. See, Irene said, he can't hear. But she didn't sound convinced. At midnight, Colton crept down to the basement. I heard him coming. The creak of the stairs, the soft pad of his feet on the concrete floor. I pretended to be asleep on the couch, my back to the room. He moved carefully, slowly. I heard him open my file cabinet, rifle through papers. He was looking for something, evidence, proof that I was the one sabotaging them. He wouldn't find it. I'd hidden everything, the recordings, the emails, the documents, all backed up in the cloud, accessible only to me. After 20 minutes, he gave up. I heard him climb the stairs, frustrated. But I wasn't worried, because tomorrow I was going to take away the last thing they had, each other. Morning came with tension thick enough to choke on. Mira was a wreck. She barely slept, barely ate. She paced the kitchen, practicing what she'd say to her brokerage, rehearsing explanations that sounded more like excuses. Irene arrived early, immaculate as always, but I could see the cracks. Her jaw was tight, her movements sharp. She was losing control, and she knew it. "You'll be fine," Irene told Mira. "Just stick to the facts. Someone's trying to sabotage you. Make them see that." "What if they don't believe me?" "They will. You've worked there for 15 years. You have a reputation." "Had a reputation," Mira corrected bitterly. Colton shuffled in, looking worse than both of them. His eyes were red and tired. His phone kept buzzing with messages from Alexis, each one angrier than the last. "She won't talk to me," he muttered. "She blocked me on everything." "Good," Irene said coldly. "That girl was a distraction anyway." "You don't get it. She's telling people, her friends, her coworkers. She's making me look like some kind of thief." "You are a thief," Irene said. Colton's face flushed. "Thanks, Grandma. Real supportive." "I'm being realistic. If you'd kept your hands out of that account, we wouldn't be in this position." "This isn't my fault." "Isn't it?" Irene's voice was ice. "You steal money. Alexis gets an anonymous tip. Coincidence?" "What about you?" Colton shot back. "You're the one with the shady past. Maybe someone from the school finally talked." Irene's face went white. "Watch your mouth." "Or what? You'll get me kicked off a board I'm not even on?" "Enough." Mira slammed her hand on the counter. "Both of you stop. We're falling apart, and that's exactly what someone wants." They fell silent, glaring at each other. I sat at the table, eating toast, my face blank. The perfect picture of a man who heard nothing, understood nothing, cared about nothing. "He's just sitting there," Colton said, his voice low and bitter. "Doesn't even know his whole family is imploding." "Lucky him," Mira muttered. Irene looked at me, her eyes cold. "Or maybe he does know, and he's enjoying it." "Mom?" Mira said warily. "Don't start." "I'm just saying. This all started after he came back from the hospital." "Coincidence," Mira said, but she didn't sound sure. "Maybe." Irene didn't look away from me. "Or maybe we've underestimated him." I took another bite of toast, smiled at her. She didn't smile back. After Mira left for her meeting, Irene stayed behind. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands folded, her eyes sharp. "Owen," she said slowly, "I want to talk to you." I looked up, tilted my head. "I know you can't hear me," she continued, "but I need to say this anyway." I waited. "I never thought you were good enough for my daughter. I tried to accept it, tried to support her. But after the accident, I realized I was right all along." Her voice was calm, clinical, like she was describing a problem that needed solving. "You became a burden, not just financially, but emotionally. Mira has spent 16 years taking care of you, sacrificing her happiness, her future." She leaned forward. "So I helped her see the truth, that she deserved better, that she didn't have to stay trapped in a marriage to a man who couldn't even hear her anymore." I kept my face neutral, my hands steady. "And now, someone is trying to destroy that, trying to destroy us, and I think it's you." She paused, searching my face for a reaction. "I don't know how. I don't know why you'd suddenly grow a spine after all these years. But if it is you, you should know that you won't win. You can't win, because you're still just a deaf, broken man who depends on us for everything." She stood up, smoothed her cardigan, and looked down at me. "So, if you can hear me, Owen, know this. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. We'll bury you." She walked out, leaving me alone in the kitchen. I sat there for a long moment. Then I pulled out my phone and checked the recording app. Every word, crystal clear. I saved it to the cloud, added it to the growing file labeled evidence. Then I smiled. Mira came home at 3 p.m., and I knew immediately it hadn't gone well. Her face was pale. Her hands shook as she set her purse down. "They suspended me," she said to Irene, who'd been waiting in the living room. "Pending investigation." Irene stood. "What?" "They said the emails show intent to commit fraud, that I was planning to hide assets from my spouse. They can't have someone like that representing their company." "That's insane." "That's what I said, but they wouldn't listen. Someone sent them everything, Mom. Everything. Emails, bank statements, even my personal notes." Your notes? Irene's face darkened. Where did you keep those? In my home office, in my desk. They both turned to look at me. I was sitting in the recliner reading a magazine. He couldn't have, Mira said. He doesn't even go in my office. Are you sure? Irene asked. I think so. Irene crossed the room, stood in front of me, and ripped the magazine out of my hands. I looked up, startled. She leaned down, her face inches from mine. If you can hear me, you need to stop this, now. I stared at her, confused. She grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at her. I know it's you. I don't know how, but I know. I jerked away, genuine fear in my eyes. Stood up, backing away from her. Mira rushed over. Mom, stop, you're scaring him. Good. Maybe he should be scared. He can't hear you. Mira grabbed Irene's arm, pulling her back. Look at him, he's terrified. I stood against the wall, breathing hard, my eyes wide. Irene studied me for a long moment. Then she turned away. Fine. Maybe I'm wrong. But if I'm not, he'll slip eventually. And when he does, we'll know. That night, I made my next move. I logged into the Neighborhood Association's website using the credentials I'd found in Irene's planner months ago. She'd never changed them, too confident in her own security. I drafted a post for the community forum. Dear neighbors, recent events have brought to light concerns about financial irregularities involving former board member Irene Morris. While the board is conducting its own review, we believe the community deserves transparency. Attached are documents detailing discrepancies from Mrs. Morris's tenure as a school district administrator. We encourage all residents to review these materials and draw their own conclusions. Sincerely, the Transparency Committee. I attached the same documents I'd sent to the board, then I posted it. Within an hour, the forum exploded. Comments poured in, questions, outrage. Neighbors who'd trusted Irene for years now demanding answers. Her phone started ringing at 8:00 p.m. and didn't stop. I heard her voice from upstairs, sharp and panicked. I don't know who posted that. No, it's not true. It was a misunderstanding from years ago. Please just let me explain. By 9:00 p.m., she was crying. By 10:00 p.m., she was in the kitchen with Mira and Colton, all three of them exhausted and defeated. This is coordinated, Irene said, her voice hollow. Someone is systematically destroying us. We know, Mira said. But who? They had no answer. I lay on the basement couch, listening to them fall apart above me. And I smiled in the darkness. Because I wasn't done yet. The next morning, Colton confronted me. I was in the basement organizing tools when he came down the stairs. His face was hard, angry. We need to talk, he said. I turned, surprised. Pointed to my ear, shook my head. Cut it, he said. Cut the act. I stared at him, confused. I know you can hear me, he continued, his voice rising. I don't know how, and I don't know why you're pretending, but I know. I kept my face blank. Shook my head again. He stepped closer. You're ruining everything. My relationship, Mom's job, Grandma's reputation, and you're just sitting there, playing dumb. I gestured helplessly, trying to communicate without words. Stop, he shouted. Just stop. He shoved me. Not hard, but enough to make me stumble back against the workbench. I caught myself, my eyes wide. That's right, Colton said, breathing hard. I'm done pretending you're some helpless victim. You're not. You never were. I held up my hands, trying to calm him. Don't, he said. Don't try to placate me. You've been lying to us, manipulating us, and I'm going to prove it. He pulled out his phone and started recording. Say something, he demanded. Admit it. I shook my head, backing away. Say something. He followed me, the phone in my face. Come on, Dad, let's hear it. Let's hear you talk. I kept shaking my head, fear in my eyes. He lowered the phone, frustrated. You're good. I'll give you that. But you'll slip. And when you do, I'll be there. He stormed back upstairs, leaving me alone. I stood there for a moment, letting the adrenaline settle. Then I checked my own phone. I'd been recording too. His confession, his accusation, his physical aggression, more evidence for the file. That afternoon, Mira's suspension became public. Her brokerage released a statement. An investigation into ethical concerns regarding one of our agents is ongoing. We take these matters seriously and are committed to transparency. Her phone exploded with messages. Colleagues, clients, friends, all asking what happened, all judging. She stopped answering after the first 10. Irene tried calling her contacts, trying to do damage control, but no one would take her calls. The Neighborhood Association had formally requested her resignation. The library revoked her volunteer position. Even her book club uninvited her from the next meeting. She was being erased, one connection at a time. Colton's situation with Alexis got worse. She didn't just block him, she posted about him online. Vague enough to avoid legal trouble, but clear enough that everyone knew who she meant. Beware of guys who steal from their own family and then play victim. His friends started asking questions. His reputation, thin as it was, crumbled. And through it all, I remained silent, watching, listening, gathering. On the third night, they held a family meeting. I wasn't invited, but I heard every word from the basement. "We need a plan," Irene said. "We can't keep reacting. We need to go on offense." "How?" Mira asked, her voice dull. "We don't even know who we're fighting." "Then we figure it out. We start with the most likely suspect." "You still think it's Owen," Colton said. "Yes. He can't hear, Grandma. We've tested him a dozen times." "Maybe he's that good." "Or maybe you're paranoid," Mira snapped. "Paranoid?" Irene's voice turned cold. "Look around, Mira. Your career is in shambles. My reputation is destroyed. Colton's relationships are falling apart. And the only person who's fine is Owen, the one person who had every reason to want revenge." "Revenge for what?" Mira demanded. "We've taken care of him for 16 years. "Have we?" Irene asked quietly. "Or have we resented him, pitied him, planned to get rid of him?" Silence. "He knows?" Irene said. "Somehow he knows." "That's impossible," Mira whispered. "Is it?" More silence. Then Colton said, "So what do we do?" "We make him reveal himself," Irene said. "We push him until he breaks." "How?" "Leave that to me." The next morning, Irene put her plan into action. She came to the house early while Mira was out. Colton was still asleep upstairs. She found me in the kitchen making coffee. "Owen," she said, her voice sweet, too sweet. "I need your help with something." I turned, smiled, and nodded. "I need to move some boxes from my garage. They're too heavy for me. Would you mind?" I gestured that I'd be happy to help. "Wonderful. Let's go now." I grabbed my coat and followed her out to her car. The drive to her house was silent. She kept glancing at me, watching for cracks in my facade. I stared out the window, oblivious. When we arrived, she led me to the garage. It was empty except for a few old boxes in the corner. "Those ones," she said, pointing. I walked over and picked up the first box. It was light, almost empty. "Actually," she said behind me. I lied. I turned. She was standing by the garage door, her hand on the button. "There are no boxes to move," she continued. "I just wanted to get you alone." I tilted my head, confused. "Because I know you can hear me, Owen, and I'm going to prove it." She pressed the button. The garage door started closing, the light dimming. "Let's see how you react when you're trapped," she said. The door closed completely. Darkness. I stood there, frozen. She stepped closer, her voice echoing in the enclosed space. "If you can hear me, you'll panic. You'll call out. You'll do something." I didn't move. "If you can't hear me, you'll stay calm." Confused, but calm. I waited. She was 3 feet away now. I could hear her breathing, fast, nervous. "So which is it, Owen? Can you hear me?" I turned toward where I thought the door was, felt along the wall, searching for the button. "Interesting," she murmured. "You know exactly where the button is." I pressed it. The door started opening. Light flooded back in. I stepped out, giving her a questioning look. "What was that about?" She studied my face. "Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe you're the best liar I've ever met." She drove me back in silence, but I knew she wasn't convinced. The trap was closing around me too. I needed to move faster. That night, I made the call that would end everything, not to a lawyer, not to the police, to someone more dangerous, Mira's boss. I'd saved his direct line from the company directory. I called from a burner phone I'd bought weeks ago. "Richard Sterling," he answered. "Mr. Sterling," I said quietly. "My name is Owen Calder. I'm Mira Calder's husband." Silence. Then, "Mr. Calder, I wasn't aware you could. I was told you were..." "Deaf?" I supplied. "I was. Recent surgery fixed it. But my wife doesn't know yet." "I see. I'm calling because I need you to understand something about the investigation into my wife." "Mr. Calder, I can't discuss..." "The emails you received are real," I interrupted. "But you don't have the full picture. My wife was manipulated by her mother for years. I have recordings. Proof that Irene Morris orchestrated everything." Another pause. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Mira isn't the villain here. She's a victim. And I want you to know the truth before you make a final decision." "Do you have this evidence?" "I do. I'll send it to you tonight. But I need something in return." What? Don't let Mira know I'm the one who gave it to you. Let her think you found it yourself. Can you do that? Why? Because this isn't over yet, and I need her to still trust that I can't hear. He was quiet for a long time. Then, send me what you have. I'll review it, but I can't make any promises. That's all I'm asking. I hung up and sent him the files. Not just the recordings of Mira and Irene, but context, explanations. A timeline showing how Irene had slowly poisoned Mira against me. It was a gamble. But I needed Mira on my side when this was over. Because the real target wasn't her. It was Irene and Colton. 2 days later, Mira got a call. I was in the living room when her phone rang. She answered, her voice cautious. Hello? Yes, this is she. Oh, really? Yes, I can come in tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you so much. She hung up, tears streaming down her face. What happened? Colton asked from the doorway. They're reopening the investigation. They found new evidence. Evidence that clears me. What evidence? I don't know. They wouldn't say, but they want me to come in tomorrow to discuss my return. She looked at me, sitting quietly in the recliner. I don't understand, she whispered. How did this happen? I smiled at her, oblivious, and went back to my book. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she shook her head and walked away. But I could see it in her eyes. Doubt, suspicion, fear. Irene didn't take the news well. How? She demanded when Mira told her. How did they suddenly find evidence that clears you? I don't know, Mom. Maybe they investigated you. Maybe they realized you were behind it. I wasn't behind anything. Weren't you? Mira's voice was sharp. You're the one who told me to move money. You're the one who said we needed to control Owen's finances. I was trying to help you. Were you, or were you trying to control me? Irene's face went pale. How dare you? No, Mom. How dare you? You've spent years telling me Owen was the problem, that he was holding me back, but maybe the problem was you. Mira, get out. What? Get out of my house, now. Irene stood there, stunned. Then she grabbed her purse and left without another word. I listened to the door slam, the car start, the tires screech as she drove away. Phase 1 complete. Irene was isolated. Now it was Colton's turn. The next evening, I left an envelope on Colton's bed. Inside were printed bank statements, every transaction he'd made using the household account, every lie he'd told about where the money went, and at the bottom, a note. Your mother knows. She's going to confront you tomorrow. I suggest you have a good explanation ready. A friend. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. The next morning, Colton came downstairs, pale and shaking. Mom, we need to talk, he said. Mira looked up from her coffee. About what? I need to tell you something. Before you find out another way. Find out what? He pulled out the envelope and handed it to her. She opened it, read through the statements. Her face hardened. You stole from me, she said quietly. I didn't steal. I just borrowed. Without asking, that's stealing, Colton. I was going to pay it back. When? How? You don't even have a job. I'm trying. No, you're not. You're sitting around, living off me, taking my money, and then lying about it. I'm sorry. Get out. Colton froze. What? Get out of my house. You have 1 week to find somewhere else to live. Mom, I'm done, Colton. I'm done enabling you. I'm done cleaning up your messes. I'm done. He stared at her, mouth open. Then he looked at me. I was sitting at the table, eating toast, completely unaware of the conversation. This is his fault, Colton said suddenly. All of this. It's him. Colton? No, listen to me. He's been doing this. He's been sabotaging us. I know it. He can't hear you. Yes, he can, Colton shouted. I know he can. He's been pretending. He's been lying. And he's been destroying us piece by piece. Mira looked at me. I looked back, confused by Colton's outburst. You're paranoid, she said quietly. I'm right. Then prove it. Colton stared at her, then at me. Then he stormed out of the kitchen. I heard him upstairs, slamming drawers, throwing things into a bag. Mira sat down across from me, her face in her hands. I don't know what's happening, she whispered. I don't know who to trust anymore. I reached across the table and touched her hand. She looked up, tears in her eyes. I smiled gently, reassuringly. She squeezed my hand. Thank you for being here, for being the one constant in all this chaos. I nodded, and inside, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Colton moved out 2 days later. He found a friend's couch to crash on. took his clothes, his computer, and his resentment with him. Before he left, he stopped in the living room where I was sitting. "I know you did this," he said, his voice low. "I know you're behind everything, and I'm going to prove it." I looked at him, tilted my head. "You think you're so smart," he continued, pretending to be helpless. "But you're not. You're a manipulator, a liar, and I'm going to expose you." I gave him a sad smile, like I wished I could understand what he was saying. He shook his head and walked out. Mira stood in the doorway, watching him go. "I don't know if I'll ever see him again," she said quietly. I walked over and put my arm around her. She leaned into me, crying softly, and I held her. The dutiful, loving husband, the victim who'd endured 16 years of silence and never complained, the man who deserved her sympathy. But my mind was already 3 steps ahead. Colton was wounded, angry, desperate, which meant he'd make a mistake, and I'd be waiting. A week later, Irene tried one last time to regain control. She called Mira, begging for forgiveness. "I was only trying to help. You have to believe me." Mira's response was cold. "You need to stay away from me, Mom, from us. I need time to figure things out." "Mira, goodbye, Mom." She hung up. Irene didn't call back, but I knew she wasn't done. People like her never gave up. They just changed tactics. Sure enough, 3 days later, she showed up at the house unannounced. Mira wasn't home. I was alone. She let herself in with the key she'd never returned. "Owen," she said, finding me in the basement. "We need to talk." I looked up from my workbench, surprised. She closed the door behind her and descended the stairs slowly. "I'm going to say this once," she said, "and I want you to really hear me, if you can." I stood, waiting. "I know what you did. I don't have proof yet, but I know. You somehow got your hearing back, and instead of telling anyone, you used it against us, against your own family." I shook my head, confused. "Stop," she snapped. "Just stop. I'm tired of the act." She stepped closer. "You ruined my reputation. You destroyed Mira's career, temporarily at least. You drove Colton out of his own home, all because of what? Revenge?" I opened my mouth to speak, then remembered I was supposed to be deaf. I closed it again and shook my head. "You think you've won," she continued, "but you haven't. Because even if Mira believes you're innocent, even if she takes you back completely, you'll still be the same pathetic man you've always been. Broken, helpless, dependent." I stared at her, my face hardening. "That's right," she said, seeing the change. "I finally got through, didn't I? The mask is slipping." I took a step toward her. She didn't back down. "Go ahead. Show me who you really are. Prove me right." We stood there, inches apart, the air thick with tension. Then I smiled, and I spoke. "You're right," I said clearly. "I can hear. I've been able to hear for weeks." Her eyes widened. "And you're right about something else," I continued. "I did ruin you, all of you, piece by piece, methodically, carefully. I recorded every conversation, every betrayal, every plan you made to erase me from my own life." Her face went white. "I sent those emails. I made those calls. I planted those seeds of doubt, and I watched you all tear each other apart." "Why?" she whispered. "Because you thought I was weak. You thought silence meant I couldn't fight back. But you were wrong." I leaned closer. "I am the reason your reputation is destroyed. I am the reason Mira doubted you. I am the reason Colton is gone. And I am the reason you're standing here, realizing you've lost everything." She staggered back, her hand on the workbench to steady herself. "You're a monster," she breathed. "No," I said. "I'm just a man who got tired of being invisible." She turned and rushed up the stairs. I let her go, because it didn't matter anymore. She had no proof, no credibility. No one would believe her if she told them. I'd already won. That night, Irene called Mira one last time. I listened from the basement as Mira answered, annoyed. "What, Mom?" "He can hear, Mira. Owen can hear. He told me." Silence. "Mom, you need to stop." "I'm not lying. He spoke to me. He admitted everything. He's been manipulating all of us." "Mom, you're not well. You need help." "I'm not crazy." "Then why would Owen do any of this? What reason would he have?" "Because we tried to take everything from him. Because we planned to push him out." Another pause. "We never did that," Mira said quietly. "Yes, we did. You know we did." "Mom, I think you need to talk to someone. A professional." "Mira, I'm hanging up now. Please don't call again until you're ready to be honest with yourself." The call ended abruptly. I heard Mira sigh upstairs, heard her footsteps as she walked to the bedroom, and I knew that Irene's last bridge had just burned. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Mira went back to work. Her brokerage formally cleared her, citing evidence that she'd been manipulated by external parties. Her reputation took a hit, but she was resilient. She'd rebuild. Colton stayed away. He sent a few texts asking for money, but Mira didn't respond. Eventually, the texts stopped. Irene disappeared into herself. No more calls, no more visits, just silence. And I played the perfect husband, attentive, supportive, still pretending to be deaf. Mira started smiling again, started trusting me again. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she said one evening, curled up next to me on the couch. "You're the only stable thing in my life." I squeezed her hand and smiled. Inside, I felt nothing. Because this wasn't about Mira anymore. She was collateral damage, a victim of her mother's manipulation. I'd already forgiven her, in my way. But Colton and Irene, they were the real targets, and I wasn't finished with them yet. Colton made the first move. Late one night, I got a text from an unknown number. "I know what you did, and I'm going to tell everyone. You have 48 hours to confess to Mom, or I will." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it. 48 hours later, Colton called Mira. "Mom, we need to talk. About Dad." "Colton, I don't want to hear it." "Just listen. He can hear. I know he can. And he's been lying to you, to all of us." "Colton, I have proof?" That got her attention. "What proof?" "I recorded him. In the basement, he was talking to himself, planning things." "Let me hear it." A pause. I don't have it anymore. My phone got wiped." "How convenient." "Mom, I'm not lying." "Colton, you stole from me. You lied to Alexis. You've been nothing but trouble for months. Why should I believe you now?" "Because I'm your son." "Then act like it. Stop blaming other people for your problems. Stop making excuses. And stop accusing your father of things you can't prove." She hung up. I was sitting across from her when it happened. She looked at me, exhausted. "He's still trying to blame you," she said. "He can't take responsibility for anything." I gave her a sympathetic look. "I'm sorry," she continued. "I know he's your son, too. But I can't keep enabling him." I nodded, squeezed her hand, and I knew Colton had just sealed his fate. 2 days later, Colton showed up at the house. It was late, past midnight. Mira was asleep upstairs. I was in the basement, working on a project. I heard the back door open, heard footsteps creeping through the kitchen. Then I heard him on the basement stairs. I turned off the light and waited in the darkness. He reached the bottom, using his phone's flashlight to see. "Dad," he called out quietly. "I know you're down here." I didn't respond. He swept the light around the room, searching. "I'm not leaving until we talk." I stepped out of the shadows. He jumped, nearly dropping his phone. "Jesus!" I stood there, arms crossed, waiting. "We need to talk," he said, his voice shaking. "About everything." I pointed to my ear and shook my head. "Stop," he said. "Just stop pretending. I know you can hear me." I tilted my head. "Grandma told me what you said, how you admitted everything." I shook my head slowly. "She's not lying. You are." I took a step toward him. He backed up. "Stay away from me." I kept walking. I said, "Stay away." He shoved me. I let him think he had the upper hand. "You ruined my life," he said, his voice breaking. "You ruined everything, my relationship, my home, my family." I stopped, staring at him. "Say something," he screamed. "Stop pretending and say something." I opened my mouth, and I spoke. "You ruined your own life, Colton." His face went white. "I just gave you the rope. You hanged yourself. You stole from your mother. You treated me like garbage. You stood by while your grandmother tried to destroy me. And now you want to blame me for the consequences?" I was just what? Following orders. That's not an excuse. You're 22 years old. You made choices, bad ones, and now you're paying for them. He stared at me, tears streaming down his face. "I'm your son. And you treated me like I was already gone." "I didn't." "You did." My voice was cold. "You wanted my room, my space, my life. Well, congratulations. You almost got it." "I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're just sorry you got caught." He collapsed onto the bottom stair, sobbing. I stood over him, unmoved. "Go home, Colton, or wherever you're staying, and don't come back." "Mom?" "Won't believe you, because I'm the victim here. I'm the one who lost 16 years of my life. I'm the one who suffered in silence while you all planned to erase me." I leaned down, my voice a whisper. "You can't win this. You already lost." He looked up at me, broken, and I walked past him, up the stairs, and closed the basement door behind me. The next morning, Mira found Colton asleep in his car outside the house. She woke him, furious. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to talk to Dad," he mumbled. "In the middle of the night?" I don't know. I wasn't thinking." She stared at him. "Colton, you need help. Professional help." "I know. I'm serious. You can't keep doing this, showing up unannounced, making accusations. You're falling apart." "I know," he said again, his voice hollow. She softened slightly. "I'll help you find a therapist, but you can't come here anymore, not until you get yourself together." He nodded. She went back inside, leaving him alone. I watched from the upstairs window as he drove away, and I knew it was finally over. That afternoon, I got a call from Irene. I let it ring, then checked the voicemail. "Owen." Her voice was small, defeated. "I know you can hear this. I know you're listening. I just want to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong, about you, about all of it. I thought I was protecting Mira, but I was just controlling her, pushing her away from you. I see that now." A long pause. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. You won. You beat me, and I deserve it." The message ended. I stood there for a moment, phone in hand. Then I deleted it. That evening, Mira came to me with a question. "Owen," she said slowly, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." I looked at her, waiting. "Can you hear me?" I froze. She watched my face carefully. "I know it sounds crazy, but so much has happened, so many things that don't make sense, and I just need to know. Can you hear me?" I stared at her for a long moment. Then I nodded. She gasped. "You can?" I nodded again. "How long?" I held up 2 fingers, then pointed to my head. "Surgery." 2 weeks? The surgery worked 2 weeks ago." I nodded. She sat down heavily. "Why didn't you tell me?" I pulled out my phone and typed, "Because I wanted to hear the truth." She read it, her face crumpling. "And you heard everything." I nodded. "Owen, I held up a hand. Typed again. "I know you were manipulated. I know it wasn't all you, but I needed to hear it. Needed to know what was really happening." "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I reached out and took her hand. She looked up at me, tears streaming. "What now?" I typed. "Now we start over, just us. No Irene, no Colton, just us. Can you forgive me?" I paused, then typed, "I already have." She threw her arms around me, sobbing. I held her, stroking her hair, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. Because it wasn't about forgiveness, it was about winning. And I'd won. A week later, I met Colton one last time. He'd asked to see me, through Mira, said he wanted to apologize. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral ground. He looked terrible, thinner, paler, broken. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. I nodded. "I know I don't deserve it. I know I screwed up, but I wanted to say I'm sorry, for everything." I studied him. "I was wrong," he continued. "About you, about everything. I let Grandma get in my head, let Mom's fears become mine, and I treated you like you didn't matter, like you were just in the way." He looked down at his coffee. "But you did matter. You always did. And I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to see that." I pulled out my phone and typed, "Do you mean it?" He read it and nodded. "Yes, I swear." I typed again, "Then prove it. Get help, get a job, build your own life. And when you've done that, maybe we can talk again." He read it, tears in his eyes. "Okay, I will, I promise." I stood up. "Dad?" he said. I looked back. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you." I nodded once. Then I walked out. That night, I stood in my basement workshop, the place where 16 years of silence had shaped my revenge. I thought about the emails, the calls, the evidence, about Irene isolated, Colton exposed, Mira choosing me. They'd mistaken silence for weakness, but I'd heard everything and used it. No aggression, just facts and evidence. And now I was free. I lifted the old lamp Colton once tried to steal. "You taught me silence meant weakness," I said. "Tonight, it's why I won." I turned off the light and went upstairs. Mira was waiting. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Good. Maybe we could take a trip, just us." I smiled. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the victor.